Hey, welcome everybody. This is John Paul, Mendoza Speed Selling. This is the Raging Verbalist number 213 if you're counting. Available on YouTube and Facebook, and Facebook group is Position to Win Book Group. Go check it out. And so if you're new, welcome. Glad that you're here. If you're a person who's been here a bunch of times, thanks a lot. Always hit the like. Why wouldn't you like it? Subscribe, notification if you want to be annoyed, and all of that. And of course, I talk about topics that are top of my mind, something that quirks me, twerks me, or whatever. And with me, as always, the person who asks the questions, who puts them out there and says, yeah, this is what we need to know, is the ever lovely Sandra. Welcome, Sandra.
Hello, how are you doing?
Well, doing pretty good. It was a hairy day yesterday, but we made it through, and there you go. You know, always fun watching the day kind of get blown up. So yeah, I'm ready. So
ready to rage. That's right. All right. So with that, what's in store for 2024? So is it even possible to predict what will take place in 2024?
Well, some things we can predict, right? We know that, you know, and I veer a lot away from politics, but we know that there's going to be an election in 24, and whatever direction that ends up going is going to create, you know, a change in what's happening, even if it just stays status quo. Also, whenever you're out there, you know, in a business and you're in sales and you're marketing, you want to be able to look at certain trends. You know, people say the trend is your friend. Well, you got to think about, well, what's going on out there. So you have to at least think about this. Now, there's this whole mindset that, you know, if you assume things, then, you know, you make an ass out of you and me kind of thing. Businesses are based upon assuming and then testing and proving whether or not your ideas or predictions are correct. So in that regard, I think, yes, we can do some predictions about 24, which I think is what we're doing today. Is I'm gonna take out the crystal ball, the Ouija board, you know, and figure out what I think are some of the things that I can predict. Now, I'll just remind everybody, if you want to be in the prediction business, which is a very important business because people pay money for it, is that you just got to know that you have to accentuate the positive. That means whatever you get right, you talk a lot about, and whatever you don't get right, well, you kind of like push it down and not talk about it anymore. So, all right, with that, what is our next question?
So what is the history of predictions?
I don't know who was the first that started doing predictions, but I think humans, once they realized this concept of time, animals do not know what time is. You know, it is always Groundhog Day for, you know, animals like the dog that we have. You know, every morning Scout gets up and he goes, hey, time to eat, time to go relieve myself, time to bark, time to do this, you know. But he doesn't say it's time, he just does it. But humans want to know what's around the corner, over the hill, what's in that future. We know that when Alexander the Great became Alexander the Great, his mother took him to the Oracle of Delphi, and the Oracle identified that he would be a great future king and a conqueror of the world and all of that. Of course, his mom had to take care of the dad, who was kind of standing in the way of this aspiration. But, you know, we've been doing predictions for a long time. And, you know, astrology has been around forever because it is a way to kind of say, this is what the future looks like. And if you don't believe that this is a profitable part of the world, just look at Benjamin Franklin. The Poor Richard's Almanac always had predictions and had things that were going to happen in the year to come, and made Franklin a rather wealthy man.
And why are people drawn to fortune tellers, soothsayers, predictors?
Well, from the simplest to the you know, longest time is that, you know, so when something is taking place that we don't know the end result, and we want to know what the end result is that there's this yearning that we have as a species, it seems, to know what's going to go on. And I am not surprised that we have this massive amount of technology that is applied to knowing what the baby is going to be. And then we have the gender reveal parties, and we have all of that stuff. Well, when my sister was pregnant, you know, we literally had people who were, you know, they were going to, like, you know, feel her tummy and belly and tell, well, what is this, what do you have growing in you, a space alien, a child, what do we have? So that's been going on, I think, for forever. I think what draws us all to it is that if somebody has this foresight or insight or pre-knowledge that they can give to us, that we always get excited and say, wow, I want to talk to that person. Now, there's a point in time where you're really just kind of guessing, and you got to guess right. But there's a lot of things that you have to look at, especially in business, because you can't just be a reaction machine. You got to be able to kind of look out and say, well, what is going to take place? What are the trends? Where's the market going? What are things that are going to be happening today as we're looking out into 24? We'll be talking about some of those things that I think clearly are predictable, because human behavior, that's the one thing that doesn't change. The future may change, but human behavior is a constant.
And when was the earliest time you were aware of predictions?
So I was a young guy, young boy, and my aunt Gussie, who was my godmother, she was a big believer in astrology. And well, you could get the astrology prediction every day, here this day, January 26, 2024, you look in the newspaper, you could read your sign and read, what's going to happen. But she wanted a bigger view, so she was going to pay to find out what that next step is and where we're going to go and all of that. And so off we would go to the Woolworth store, now long gone, and they had a machine that if you put in a dime and you selected your sign, it would pop out and you get this little tiny scroll rolled up really tight. I mean, you could have snorted Coke through that thing. I mean, it was this little tiny scroll, and then she would unfurl it. It was always printed on, a specific color for each. I'm sure they did it because they wanted to, make sure that the idiots who loaded, the guys who loaded his machines didn't put the wrong thing in the wrong slot, because they, got a problem. And, she would unfurl it and read this, and she would have the predictions for the month, for the month of February, this is what's going to happen. And she would go buy it just before that. And, she was investing and paying for that insight, just ahead of time. And so I thought, okay, well, that's kind of cool. And then, of course, being precocious, I said, well, what about my predictions? And what are the stars telling you about me? And she says, well, you have to get a dime. No, she was that kind of person. She wasn't going to pop a dime. Now, I had a dime in my pocket, burning a hole in my pocket, because I was going to get some candy. And yes, I know, dime for candy. Okay. Well, she talked me out of the dime, popped it in there, opened it up, popped out this little scroll, unrolled it. Didn't mean a lot to me, because even though I could read, I'm trying to figure out what this gibberish was. So that was the first time I ever paid for a prediction. Did it come out right? Did I find the love of my life at like 8 years old? No, I don't think so. I had my lucky numbers. I didn't know what to do with them because there wasn't a lottery. But it was general enough that it was sounded pretty cool, and talked a lot about what I should or shouldn't know, and what I should or shouldn't do, and all of that. Now, given that was how I got introduced to that, I was always then interested in later on in game theory and figuring out, what works and what doesn't work, and how do we learn and how do we know something? Can we figure something out? So I eventually got to the point of where, I wrote a book, and maybe this is the book that you should be reading to find out your future, because I predict that most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes. It just takes them 3 to 5 years to realize it, and you want a position to win. Now, I believe that that's a prediction which will hold up, and the reason why most businesses fail is very simple. There are things that they make, decisions that they make, which affect everything. So it's one thing to have a prediction, but it's what do you do with that prediction? So check it out at positiontowinbook.com, positiontowinbook.com. You can buy it there, and I will sign it, and you can say, hey, John, say something cool, and I'll do that. Also, you can get it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. You can get the physical copy, and you can get it in all digital formats, such as Kindle, Nook, and Apple iBooks. And then on the other side, if you are a remote worker, and you want to check that out, go get Remote Work for a Better World. Also at positiontowinbook.com, there are some freebies for those of you who just want to dip your toe in the water. So, Sandra, what's our next question?
All right. So will we have a recession in 2024?
So I have to, of course, get on the rose-colored glasses so I can peer out into the future and kind of grasp what's going on and all of that. And will we have a recession? So this is a question that keeps popping up. If you look at the economic data, it looks like maybe they've engineered for the first time ever a soft landing. There's always pros and cons about these things. The question is with the amount of money sloshing around, will we have a recession? Maybe not if they cut interest rates, and the only reason why they would really be cutting interest rates would be because there's some political funny business going on in that regard. So I think that it may hold off for a few more months. However, there is the factor of inflation. I went to a fast food restaurant recently, and you look at those prices, and they're up and they're staying up. And yes, wages may have gone up a little bit, but nowhere near to compensate. So my prediction is if we get one, it will be towards the end of the year, and it will be the start of it. No one knows how deep these go until we get there. I can tell you that in 2006, when I went out and made a bold prediction, which was the coming crisis in the real estate market, in the mortgage industry, those people in the mortgage industry said this was ridiculous. I saw that just because I was so close to the industry. The closer you are to something, the better you are to predict it. The economy right now, it looks like there's a lot of money sloshing around. Money sloshing around usually means no recession. So that's about as ambiguous as I can get.
All right.
Which of course always helps if you're in the prediction business. Okay, sorry.
All right.
I took too much of a dramatic pause there. I know. What's this guy doing to me? Come on.
All right. So what do you see for the stock market? And is there a specific stock that you'd like to talk about?
Well, the stock market is on a tear. It's going up. However, it's going up in a very narrow way. Back in the 60s, it was called the Nifty 50. Now we're to the Hyper 7 or whatever they call the 7 tech stocks that are roaring along. And I can tell you that the challenge when it is that tightly and narrowly driven is that all you need to do is have some cracks in that cosmic egg and things start falling apart. Mergers and acquisitions activity is down a lot. IPOs, we'll see how they come out. Reddit is supposed to be, as I'm recording this, is working on IPO. We'll see if it comes out at a decent price or not. But there's a lot of businesses that were the unicorns, which were the billion-dollar valuations that are going away. So I think the stock market is on a run and it's hitting new highs. The question is, can it sustain them? There's always pullbacks in that, and that becomes an issue. And talking about a pullback is that Tesla just took a tumble. Their results were, that they're almost selling $100 billion worth of cars a year. That's a big number. And from where they were before, I'm interested in the stock. I can tell you that, and I am not giving financial advice. I have to also say that because that protects me so they don't come knocking on the door and say, hey, listen to what you said, and I lost my kids' college money or something. I'm fascinated by Tesla because I think that they are undervalued, and they're undervalued for a very important reason, which is that AI and software are going to be king. I would be very wary of all the AI stuff coming out, even though I have a business where we're very involved with AI, just because we are going to see some volatility that's crazy. The reason why I like Tesla is that Tesla is all about the software, and people are going to view a car, transportation differently. And we are watching, just like we watched the cell phone revolution. I lived it, and people will say to me now, well, John, this Tesla thing, look at the problems they had in Chicago or wherever. All true. Again, this is the teething pains of getting out new technology, but I do believe their software and their data is going to be worth a massive amount of money. You should invest with your, wisely, take risks and know you are taking risks. However, I just think that it's probably in a good spot right now because it has pulled back so much.
And who do you predict will be in the Super Bowl?
So now we get to the important stuff. So this weekend, there's going to be the conference championship games, and we have the 49ers and the Detroit Lions. And I believe that the 49ers will win that game. Interestingly enough, again, as somebody who was in Vegas, was a professional gambler, now I gamble on business and life, I can tell you that the 49ers won last week. Yay, cheering fans. And I had all these people say, wasn't that great? They won the game, but they didn't cover the spread. So that's the only thing that matters if you bet on them. It isn't whether you win or lose. Do you cover the spread and collect the cash? So I think the 49ers will win that game. Ravens and Chiefs, Baltimore Ravens, Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs won it last year. I think that the Ravens on paper are a better team. They are playing in Baltimore, so that will be a hostile stadium. If Mahomes is on his game, it's the quarterback for Kansas City Chiefs, then Chiefs have a chance. However, it seems like this is the Ravens year, so I predict it's going to be 49ers Ravens, and we'll be doing a prediction about the Super Bowl itself. Again, since betting has gone crazy in this world, always watch the spread. Always understand it isn't who wins or loses; it's who beats the spread.
And in business, how much should you rely upon predictions?
Well, in business, we always want to try to forecast sales. We're always trying to look out over the horizon and see what's going on. What is the deal flow? How are we doing? What are the things that are going on? We have to have some mechanism by looking towards the future. We can't just say, well, when it happens, it happens. And so I think that we need to be careful about that. I know that oftentimes business owners and entrepreneurs will start, inhaling lots and lots of information. There are always pros and cons. There are going to be people who will agree with you and disagree with you. The most important thing about predictions is being aware of some changes that are taking place. As an example, when we see major changing, when we see media changing, when we see advertising changing, when Google AdWords was young and the crust of the earth hadn't cooled in that internet space, I kept telling clients, begging clients, you have to advertise more in the internet, especially the Google AdWords space. Most of them were hesitant and missed out on some huge opportunities. Now it appears that there's massive amounts of money being spread around and spent on the internet world. And I can tell you there's a lot of breakage. Breakage is how media makes money, which is ads that are shown to me that don't have anything to do with me. So you always be aware of these kinds of trends and always look at what your competitors are doing. I was recently doing a consult, and it was astonishing how little they knew about their competition, how truly little they knew about their competition. So predictions are something you are going to have to make some kind of predictions. However, just like Peter Drucker said, it isn't making decisions, it's making the decisions right. So you want to figure out how to make them right after, they don't turn out the way you thought it was going to turn out.
And how do you use this idea of predictions inside of businesses?
Well, I think I take it back to doing sales forecasting and asking people what they think a deal is doing and where it's going to close. Oftentimes we have people who are wild-eyed optimists. We have pessimists. We have all of those people in between. So predictions inside of a business is that it isn't so much doing what the accounting folks do, the number of people do, and they're trying to drive things. But if you sit there and say, I want to grow at 10% a year, or I want to do, this kind of growth, if you pick a static number without doing any analysis to back it up, you may in fact demoralize your team. Nothing grows to the sky. Business conditions change. So you have to make sure that when you use predictions inside, that you don't fall in love with your numbers so much that if you miss those numbers, that you feel terrible about it. It's one of the things I recommend working with individuals coaching, especially business owners, entrepreneurs, salespeople, marketing people. Let's make sure that our predictions are backed up with something, that we are correct in what we're trying to do. If you want to see a 30% growth, that's a great number if that makes sense. Where are we going to get it from? Are we going to push our competitors out? Are we going to do some other things? And if all of that makes sense, then put that in there. I always put together 3 bands when I'm doing sales forecasting or sales predictions, as we would call them today. And I would have a median line, and then so that's where we'd like to be. I'd have a line below that, which may be like 20% below that, and make sure that we're going to make good money at that level. And then I would have an aspirational level that maybe is 20% higher than that. I know it's a lot of numbers, always hard to visualize them. But the point of it is that you want to make sure that you hit that bottom goal, because that bottom, that lower line, means that you have had growth, you have had success, and everybody can celebrate. One of the worst managers I ever had is, we ended up meeting a very aggressive goal, but we didn't meet it. We were like 10% off of this thing, but it was still a massive growth, and they couldn't celebrate. They were just, we're just not hitting our numbers. And from that lesson, I learned that you should always have at least 3. 3 is the right number, because then that way you have that acceptable goal. Then you have a goal that's above that, which is the one that we really want to hit. And then we have the aspirational one if we can blow it out. As we talked about today, making predictions is a tricky and dicey thing. And the reason for it is that no one truly knows the future. If you know, put your information in the comments below, get a hold of me, we'll go to Vegas and you can predict away and we'll make a ton of money. What you do need to do is be aware that even though it is challenging, we do need to look out in the future. We do need to say, what if, and then put something behind that. And then see how close you are. If you really know an industry, if you have that sense, that pulse of what's going on, you will then understand how to make better decisions based upon what you believe will take place. Always knowing that feedback and having a very good feedback loop is that the market is always correct and we are always fighting against our innate sense that we are going to be right. Do that and you'll make better predictions, stronger predictions, and hopefully you'll get some things right and people will say, you're a genius, you're a soothsayer, you're a seer of the future. But until then, work hard, get things done, and most importantly, always be ready when the market conditions change. And with that, I'm John Paul Mendoza, Dr. Speed Selling, and for myself and the ever lovely Sandra, this has been the Raging Verbalist number 213, and hopefully we'll see you on the next, and maybe I predict we will see you on the next Raging Verbalist.